I guess if you're at least my age or older, you've probably heard all the things I'm about to tell you about. You've lived through all these generations and heard a lot of these slang words and things that people did in the generations before you, in your generation, and the generations after you. And it doesn't matter which, decade you were a teenager, there were different words. And there are today. The teenagers today say things that I don't know what they mean, okay? Bro, what is that? They say things, you have to ask them, what does that mean? And we had the same thing. Every generation had certain things we did, certain things we said. A lot of these things, this slang was inspired by TV shows, radio shows maybe, movie stars, all these different things. And Tilly, what are you doing? Okay, she just come charging up to me. So I wanted to go over some of these because some of them are pretty funny. Some of them, I got to get my dog back. Come here. You're moving the camera. Now you're going to knock the camera over. Get out of there. Okay. Do I have to start the video over? I'm not starting over. It's just Tilly doing Tilly things. So in the 50s, and you can see and hear a lot of these things. If you watch old movies throughout the decades, whichever decade it came from, even in the 40s. Are you taking my notes? She's trying to take my notes. You're full of it today. Man, you go away if you're going to behave like that. See what it's like having these dogs, man? Anyway, I remember my grandmother would just say things, the bee's knees, My grandmother was born in the 20s, and so she would have been a teenager, I don't know, mid-30s, early, 40s. And they had, the bee's knees. I remember her saying that. There were a few others. It's going to get my goat. She'd always say, that's going to get your goat. I'm going to get your goat or something like that. They always had something you didn't know what it meant. The 50s, I've got my notes here because I can't remember all of them, man. 50s, you had Daddy-O. Hey, Daddy-O. Hey, man, that's hip. Or you're a square. Cool cat. Yep. And in the 60s, that's my favorite one, the 60s, because I want to bring back all these words. We know what they are. Groovy. That wasn't groovy, what you did with my notes, Tilly. I like the word groovy, and we should use it. So from now on, everybody start using the word. I want to see the word groovy in some form in the comments. And that would be groovy. Also, we had far out. You can also use that in the comments. Hey, man, that's far out. Can you dig it? There's another one. Can you dig it? My uncle used to say, can you dig it? Or I dig it all the time. I got an old 60s gold Sirius XM station playing in there. And them songs all say it. Something's always about getting groovy, or can you dig it? I can dig it, you can dig it, we can dig it. I got the lyrics all wrong. But the 60s, I think, had the coolest with the groovy, far out. Now, I know there was more that they had. Psychedelic, man, In the 70s, now this was when I start using these words, keep on trucking. Remember that? You'd go to the fair and you'd break the balloons and they'd give you a mirror and it had this big foot. And it'd say, keep on trucking. Yep. Truck driving movies and songs were big in the 70s. So I think a lot of that came from the truck driving. Everybody had a CB radio and CBs were big, and truck driving movies. Burt Reynolds was in some of them, and Convoy. Keep on trucking. Trucking was big, man. You was cool if you was a truck driver in the 70s. They also had Ride On. I think they had Ride On in the 60s, but we used Ride On. In fact, I got a friend, a little bit older than me, uses those words to this day. Right on. And boogie. Them one of the disco freaks used to use the word boogie. But I would catch myself from time to time saying, man, I'm gonna boogie. And I'd boogie. Right on. And then the 80s. That's one decade I was busy. I was busy getting in trouble, doing all kinds of things. I went in the military, and I didn't really get around these words. Gnarly. This is California stuff mostly. Rad. Totally. Gag me. I think the 80s had the lamest words out of all of our decades. You 80s kids, yes. They had a lot more than that. The 90s. As if. Da bomb. And fat with a P. And now, we've got stuff like bro, brah. They say things I don't understand what they mean. And once in a while, somebody will comment in the comment section, a youngster, with one of those terms. I have no clue what they're talking about. Talk to me in English. Of course, the decade older than me didn't know what I was talking about when I told them to keep on trucking. But everybody should know what keep on trucking means, even if you're young. Yeah, let's see. Now, I did a little research to figure out where does this slang start? It has to start with somebody. Like I said, sometimes it starts with the TV shows. You know, Fonzie's on there on Happy Days and he says something and everybody in school the next day is using it. And there it is. I don't even remember what Fonzie said other than A. Young people intentionally use slang their parents don't use, just to have something of their own. Well, that could be it. Bodacious, tubular, wicked, for real, bet, for real. That's one I can't stand. For real, no, for fake, man, for fake. You know what I'm saying? For fake. So that's why, one reason. And then, as I was saying, pop culture creates new slang without trying. Movies, TV shows. I already said that and I knew this. So some of the examples that you've seen in movies would have been groovy. Okay, we all know this one if you watch shows in the 70s. This was big. Dynamite. Remember who said it? Yep, old JJ. I'm going to get up out of this chair and I'm going to walk to the right. And y'all won't see me. And that's dynamite. Cowabunga. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Talk to the Hand. 90s sitcom culture. I don't think I ever used that one. I don't know any TikTok words. And then regional slang became national slang. And I would have to say a lot of it came out of California, but here's one, y'all. We've always said y'all in the South, you know. Hella. What is hella? It says California. Hella. H-E-L-L-A. Hella. Never heard it. Never heard of it. Never heard it. Wicked. Hey man, that's wicked. That comes from Boston. Bruh, bro, bruh. West Coast. Go figure. You Californians always coming up with weird stuff to say, do. I don't know. Bless your heart. You ever been south, you'll hear that. Sometimes that means they like you. Sometimes it means they don't. Workplaces invented slang too. 10-4. Yep, everybody was doing the 10. In fact, I did that to my father this morning. Every morning, because I live alone, I text my father just to let him know I'm kicking. And I don't like to say the same thing every time. So this morning I said, breaker, breaker, it's a big 10-4 here. And he came back with some more. See, he knew about the 70s because, well, he was in them. And he answered to something I would understand. He said, that's a big 10-4. Keep on trucking. That comes from the 70s culture. Okay, I guess I could have waited till I got into my notes. I would have seen this. And snafu, AWOL, and chow, military. Yep, I know what those are. Skunked, deadhead, and rig comes from the trades transports. The internet didn't just spread slang, it manufactured it. Alright, there's my note. So I don't know, maybe I got too much time on my hands wondering where some of these words come from, but I thought it'd be a good topic, you know. It'd be groovy to come in here. Can you dig it? If not, I'll just keep on trucking. We'll do a different kind of video tomorrow, I guess. What's your favorite word? What did you use? Do you know somebody that's still using slang from another decade? Let me know in the comments. I still know quite a few people. In fact, I worked with a guy at a newspaper, and let's see, when was I there last? 2010. But he was a 60s hippie type, okay? He still wore bell-bottoms, and he would go to thrift stores and find jeans from that era. And usually, and if they didn't have bell-bottoms, he would make bell-bottoms. I remember making bell-bottoms as a kid. The bigger the bell, the better. You had to cover your whole shoe up. Yep, they were the ugliest pants ever worn in the history of the world, bell-bottoms. But he still wore them. And not only did he still wear them, but he drove a van, an old van. And I remember when his van blew a motor and just bit the dust, he had one hell of a search to find another one, and he did. He found another one that was like a groovy 60s van. And he wore these glasses. I mean, he dressed like he was in the 1960s, long hair. It was hilarious. And I've seen a few of them old hippies around. You don't see many now because, well, they're past that. They're, you know, a lot of them are gone. But you know, like I said, my friend in Oklahoma, he still uses the word. He's probably watching. He knows who he is. Yep, right on. Keep on trucking. And he had a big CB at his house. He had everybody had huge antennas. You know, somebody in the neighborhood would have the base station. He had one. In fact, he still deals with CBs. He's probably watching. He uses words like right on. That's one of his trademark words. Right on. Keep on trucking. So he's like stuck in the early to mid 70s. Me, I never really used many slang words, I guess, because I don't know, just something about doing what everyone else is doing. I've never been that type of person. But you probably do know somebody that's using words that are out of style, that are far out. I guess that's all I got, man. Y'all stay cool, groovy, far out. Happy trails.